I'm Angela Clark with Threadwaggle Quilting, and today we're going to actually be quilting on our quilt paths. So far we have set up our design, we've talked about our zones, we've talked about how to manage our zones, and we're ready to place our first zone. When you first come into the program, or after you hit sew in zones and you've saved your zone, it is going to put your zone up in the top left-hand corner of your safe area. And you want to actually tell Quilt Path where you want this green box to be inside your safe area. So I've moved my long arm to the top center of my safe area, and I'm going to touch this big button on the bottom that has the green rectangle with the little mark, the yellow mark at the top center. That is the center button. So when I tap on it, it is going to tell me, oh, Angela, you want to mark this zone, right? So that you know where it is. So I'm going to show you how I do that real quick. I'm just going to say okay to that message real quick because I'm not going to move my long arm. And then I take orange tape, right? And I take my orange tape and I put it underneath the foot of my long arm. And then I'm going to poke a hole through it by using my needle up, needle down. So needle down, needle up, and I have a pinpoint where my needle is, right? So I know I can align to that later if I need to. Now that I have it, my center marked and my zone is placed, and I can see that the zone has moved on the screen, so I know it's been placed, I can move my long arm, well, except for the fact my long arm is currently locked. So I'm going to release my carriage down here on the bottom, and then I'm going to move my long arm. And I'm just kind of moving it over where I think the top left corner is going to be. So I'm not getting it right on it, but I'm going to get it close. Then I'm going to hit the toolbox and do move to start point, which is the top button. And the only reason that I'm moving my long arm over there to start out with is to get it close, right? It's just quicker for me than it is for me to have it move all the way from the center. So now I'm going to bring my thread up where my long arm is. So I'm going to do needle down, needle up. When you use move to start point, it doesn't lock your long arm in place. So I can grab my top thread and then just pull my bobbin thread up from the bottom. And I actually have something hot here, so I'm gonna break that thread and then make sure I have my bobbin thread, which I don't. Yeah, I do. I have my bobbin thread. So I have a little bit of a thread nest mess over here that I should probably clean up. But I'm not gonna worry about it too much right now because this is a donation quilt, right? Okay, so now my long arm is where it needs to start. Now, there is another button here called bobbin pull. Right now, there is a known issue with the bobbin pull, so we want you to not be using that button, at least until there's another release of Quilt Path, at which point we would tell you if that issue is addressed or not. But as of right now, we do need you to avoid the pull bobbin button and use the toolbox move to start point option instead. Once you're ready to quilt, you're going to hold those two threads and you're going to hit sew. So I'm going to hold my two threads, hit the sew button down here, and it's going to tack off and start sewing. Oops. And I haven't installed my thread break sensor yet, so I'm just going to tell it to ignore. And then once I get the button, hit sew again, and it's going to start right back up again. So you should not be seeing that message. Okay, so now it's going to be quilting the first row. It quilted this partial all the way across. It's gonna quilt the first row going right to left, and it'll quilt the bottom row going left to right. Okay, so we have gotten all the way to the stop point here, and the finished zone button has shown up. So what I'm gonna do is make sure that I did stitch all the way across, and I did. Before I move zones, if I need to repair pattern, I would need to do it before I tell it I'm finished. But in this case, I'm finished, so I'm going to stop my thread. So bring my thread up to the top. And then it has tacked off, so I'm going to use the world's largest scissors, because it's what I have down here right now, to cut my thread. Okay, so now my long arm is free. I'm stitched all the way to the edge, and I need Quilt Path to tell me where the next zone is. So I know the next zone is that the zone marker is going to come straight down, and it's going to be somewhere in that vicinity. So I'm just going to get my long arm kind of close to where it needs to go, and then I'm going to hit the finished zone button. And I have my piece of tape already ready for me. It asks me, are you sure you finished everything? And it tells me that it's going to do things like clear eclipse, my pattern eclipse if I have any. But yes, I am ready to go, so I'm going to hit the yes button. And in a second, it's going to move my long arm to where I need to put my tape. I'm going to put my tape underneath the hopping foot again. Right, use my needle up, needle down to punch a hole in that tape. Okay, and then if I hit the continue button, the continue button is red, right? But the fastest way for me to do a needle up, needle down is on my long arm handles. So if I hit continue, it's going to give me a warning, and I'm going to just say no for a second. It gives me a warning that says, hey, you haven't actually marked anything, are you sure? Normally I just hit yes and keep going because I can see the tape on my thing. If you want that button to turn green and for it to tell you that you're done, you would need to use single stitch inside the program, which is much slower, right? But it will still do it. Once you've done that, it's going to tell you it's done, your button is going to turn green, and when you hit continue, you would not get the message. It just depends on how you want to use the program. Okay, so it says, are you sure all the zone markers have been properly placed? Yes, in this case there is only one, and I can see the hole in it, so we are fine. So I'm going to say yes, And then it's going to say the machine will now move to where the fabric for the next zone should be positioned. Now, this is an estimate. It's actually just going to move back to where the last zone was set. And you can tell I have a bunch of space down here on the bottom, so I don't really have to move it back that far. So I'm going to say okay, and let it move back. It's going to move the long arm back for me. And I did a double stitch on there, so I want to make sure that my thread is clear. Okay, so this is where it wants me to move the fabric to, so I can say, I can say okay, and then it's going to ask me if I've moved the fabric, which means I need to move fabric now. So I'm going to say, take my clamps off the left, take my clamps off the right, and then forward my little quilt up until my, I'm going to actually do two things because I didn't think about this, but I'm going to forward the little quilt up until I'm pretty close to having it under there. In this case, I'm not going to put it all the way under it because I know I have several inches below this that I can quilt on. And I don't have to go back as far as what Quilt Path is telling me to because I have the 2 inches below it that I can see on the screen. Okay, so I'm making sure everything is straight. Okay, and I'm going to say okay, right? And then I'm going to sew my right side down and then my left side, so needle down, needle up. And I just sew mine away from me. I don't worry about basting it down, I just sew it down. I'm going to put my clamps on and cut with the scissors I don't normally use, but they're here, so they work. And normally I don't like threads hanging off of my quilts. I like them to be, everything to be cleaned up before I start quilting, right? So I cut all the threads typically. I know I didn't do that on the top, but typically I do. Okay, do the same thing over here, needle down, needle up. Grab my bottom thread, needle down, stitch it so that it's continuous. And I'm gonna go up the side of this quilt. And you're gonna notice that I actually push down on the surface of my quilt in front of my long arm, not on the base of my long arm. And I'm doing that to give myself control working backwards. It just flattens out the air bubble that travels in front of the foot. I'm going to step over here for a second so I'm out of frame. Okay, I just want to get some of that mess cleared up. And then I rotated it forward because when I put my hand down, it slid. Okay. Now what I want to do is go back to where my tape is. And I'm going to sneak my needle down into that hole again so that I make sure that I'm on the same point. And then I'm going to tell it that's where my center is. And I'm ready to go again. And you can see that I'm quilting a lot closer to me this time. Now, this is an ergonomics thing, guys. I'm a very tall girl. I'm almost 6 feet tall. And I don't want to quilt at the back of my frame. Even though I can easily reach the back of that frame, I only need to go back 10 inches. So it makes sense that I'm doing 10 inches closer to me instead of 10 inches farther away. And this is going to become important when I show you how to repair pattern, because I'm keeping my patterns close to me, so if I have an issue, it's easier to fix. Okay? So, but I'm ready to sew again. It's placed. I'm going to bring my needle up. Move this over to the right-hand side. Whoops, forgot to put my clamps on. Excuse me as I walk in front of the camera for a second. Put those clamps on. So I follow the ABCs of quilting, right? Advance, baste, and then clamp. Okay. And then I'm going to tell Quilt Path again, move you to my start point. Wow, that was good. Trust me, it's not always that good. Get my bobbin thread, hold them both, and I kind of twist them around my finger and put pressure on them, and then just hold it. Oops, I hit the wrong button. We're gonna go mark that again. Let's go. Those things happen when you're on camera, I'm just saying. Okay, that's actually my center point. Okay, let's do this one more time. We're gonna move to our start. We're gonna toolbox, move to start point. I'm gonna needle down, is what I was trying to do. Needle up, pull to the top. Hold both of them, kind of twist them around my finger. And this time I'm gonna hit the sew button instead of resetting it accidentally. Oops. But that's all there is to this. You're gonna continue to sew this out. It's gonna ask you to set the next mark, and then you're gonna continue down your quilt. Hi everyone, sorry the audio didn't work for the outro I did for this video. I just wanted to say thank you for watching the video, and hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, and